The Lubavitcher Rebbe worked up until the day he had a stroke at the age of 90 years old. And the Rebbe always said that when people asked him, when are you going to retire? He said, I'll retire after 120. Often people would ask the Rebbe if they could retire. And I remember once seeing a video where a rabbi said, I want to retire from my position. And the Rebbe said to the rabbi, show me where in Jewish law it says it's permissible to retire. Even more than that, a businessman, a wealthy man who once sold his company and retired. And then a number of years later, he was given the opportunity to purchase back his company. And he asked the Rebbe, he said, I have enough money, but I have an opportunity to buy back my old company. What should I do? And the Rebbe said, if God gives you a talent, an ability to make money, to be a business person, you have to utilize that fully, and you should buy back your company. You would think the Rebbe would say, no, take it easy, go study more Torah, volunteer more, do good deeds. But the Rebbe said, no, God gave you an ability to be successful. The more money you make, the more good you can do, the more charity you can give, the more people you can help. We are put in this world, the Rebbe said, to utilize all of our abilities to the fullest. And every day God gives us is a vote of confidence that we could do more in this world, and we have no permission to sit back and retire. There's nothing more powerful illustration of this than this week's Torah portion. In this week's Parsha, Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh on a mission from God to redeem the Jewish people, to demand that Pharaoh let my people go. And the Torah makes a point of saying that Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 years old when they stood before Pharaoh for the very first time. Think about it. Moses, our greatest leader ever, the one who is known for having taken the Jews out of Egypt, brought about 10 plagues on Egypt, split the sea, led the Jews to Mount Sinai, gave them the Torah, taught them the entire Torah, all the 613 commandments that we still observe until this very day and study, is called the Torah of Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, and led the Jewish people to the land of Israel that we still possess till this very day. And when did he accomplish this? In the last 40 years of his life, between the ages of 80 and 120. When he died at 120, he had accomplished the greatest feats of his life in the last 40 years of his life. As you would say, in the last trimester of his life. Often at the age of 80, people are already thinking about retirement, or they've already retired years ago. And the Torah shows us that Moses had his greatest achievements between the ages of 80 and 120. And the Torah is making a point of saying this to teach us this very vital lesson. And that is that we should never slow down. If God gives us strength and we have the capabilities, we have to utilize every moment of life and every day, because it's a gift. We never know what we could achieve in those days and years ahead. Yesterday, the world lost a great Jewish philanthropist, Sheldon Adelson, who died at the age of 87. Sheldon Adelson is known for his huge support for so many Jewish causes, especially those connected to the land of Israel. He is famously known for his support of Birthright, where over 500,000 college students have traveled to Israel and has transformed thousands of lives by imbuing them with the love of Israel and Yiddishkeit. How many thousands of boys and girls met each other on Birthright trips. This was just one of the many contributions that Sheldon Adelson made to the Jewish world. And I have to tell you that he told his story of rags to riches. He was born to a poor Czechoslovakian family. His father was an immigrant and his father was a taxi driver. And he said he remembers how every day his father would come home with pockets filled with cash after driving a cab for 12 hours. And the first thing his father would do would go over to the blue and white J&F box and stick bills, dollars into the pushka. And he said, I once said to my father, Dad, why are you putting that money in the charity box? We need it, because his family was struggling to put food on the table. And his father said, Sheldon, remember, no matter what you have, there are always those who have less fortunate, or less fortunate and have less than you. Sheldon Adelson went on to be one of the wealthiest people in the world. When he died yesterday, his net worth was approximately $34 billion. Having been born in a poor family, he never forgot that lesson in life, that no matter what you have, there are those less fortunate, and you must always give charity. And he said one of his greatest pains and regrets was that his father loved Israel so much, but never merited to go to Israel because he couldn't afford the airfare to go to Israel. And that's why he said, when his father died, he put on his father's shoes and traveled to Israel for the first time and walked the country from its width to its breadth, to its length, in his father's shoes, bringing his father's memory and presence to Israel. And he said, therefore I support birthright, because I believe that it's the birthright of every Jew to go to Israel. But I want you to know something fascinating. One of the great things that happened in 2018 was that the United States moved their embassy from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim. And one of the last things, remarkable things that Sheldon Adelson did just this summer in July, was he purchased the former United States Embassy in Herzliya Patuach, a beachfront property. And he paid the largest price for any single home residence in the history of Israel. He paid $67 million to buy the beachfront former residence of the ambassador of the United States. And the reason he did it was not because he was planning on making Aliyah at the age of 87 and living in Herzliya Patuach. He was already sick, diagnosed with cancer and battling it. He wasn't planning to move there with his wife or his family and live in Israel. He bought the former ambassador's residence for $67 million, paying the top price for any residence for one simple reason. He wanted to make sure that no one would ever even consider moving the embassy back to Tel Aviv. And by buying this beachfront property near Tel Aviv, he was securing the future of Israel to make sure that he would prevent any thought of putting the ambassador back into their former residence. That was Sheldon Adelson. At the age of 87, sick, battling cancer, he still didn't retire. He kept on working for the Jewish people. He kept on trying to make a positive impact for the future, for generations, for Am Yisrael and for Eretz Yisrael. Let us be inspired by Moshe Rabbeinu in this week's Parsha, by Aaron, who began their mission at 80 and 83 years old respectively, and by Sheldon Adelson, who at the age of 87 was still working tirelessly for the future of the Jewish people. That every day God grants us health and the ability to do good deeds for the benefit of others, for the benefit of the world, for the benefit of the Jewish people and Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. We must receive that gift and utilize it fully. Have a wonderful day.